I have never seen in the Parinibbana Sutta that the Buddha would ever suggest that monks, after the Buddha passes away, that they should take refuge in the so-called pure community, in the so-called pure monks. I've never seen this in the Parinibbana Sutta, and I'm pretty sure it's not there, but there is something else which might have led to this. And that is that Venerable Ananda asks the Buddha, who will be the leader of the monastic community after the Buddha passes away? And the Buddha says, nobody will be the leader of the monastic community after the Buddha passes away. It is the Buddha's teaching which will be the leader of the community. So the Buddha did not decide about his successor. So the idea about venerating the real monks can also come from another saying of the Buddha, and that is there is this, I think his name is Channa, I'm not sure. Somebody comes and he wants to ask the Buddha some questions before the Buddha passed away. And Venerable Ananda prohibited this layperson to approach the Buddha because the Buddha was already too sick, and it would be very difficult. It might be uncomfortable for the Buddha to answer anything. But the Buddha overheard the conversation and he requested that the person is allowed to come and ask. So the person who came, they asked the Buddha about the time, about the period. How long time will the Buddha's teachings be available? How long time it will be possible that monks attain full enlightenment? And the Buddha explained that until there are monks who follow all of the Vinaya rules, all of the discipline, there will be fully enlightened monks in the world. So again, this might have been the cause for this saying, that in order to preserve the teachings, in order that we really follow the Buddha's teachings, we have to approach those who follow the rules, and we ourselves have to follow the rules. So these might be the two conditions for that, what you heard. But because I am a monk who tries to find all kinds of ways how to explain to other monks to follow all of the rules, and I have heard these kinds of things that you are talking about from various resources, and I'm basically collecting them from my book, because I wrote a book about why monks should not touch money, with all kinds of details. It's basically the answers for the questions for the monastic court where I was where I was called, you know. So I was blamed, you know, at the, I don't know these English words, but anyway, I was blamed at the monastic court that I have insulted the monastic community when I used different ways how to explain that monks should not use and touch money. And then for this hearing at the court, I wrote a book. I had one night to write it. So during that one night, I wrote my book with all the references and all the citations. I brought it to the court, and thanks to that, not only that I'm allowed to teach Dhamma and to teach the Buddha's teachings and the rules, but I'm specifically ordered to publish the explanations in the book. So the book contains all kinds of references to exactly this, you know, that monks who do not follow the precepts, they should not teach Dhamma, and people should not listen about Dhamma or about the rules from monks who do not follow the rules. So this is a very important point, you know, for my book. So I collect these things, and indeed, I'm sure that if it was in Parinibbana Sutta, I'm sure I would know it. But it's possible that what you are talking about was derived from these two sayings of the Buddha. I also read Parinibbana Sutta several times. Also, many portions in the original language Pali, which I can fluently understand even without dictionary. And really, I've never seen anything like this there. But the idea that we should listen to monks who really follow the rules, who are really pure, this is coming in many other discourses of the Buddha. The Buddha speaks about the necessity for a monk to, he's speaking about necessary requirements for a monk to teach Dhamma. So there are different discourses which give different lists of these requirements, and always it is that the monk needs to be enlightened. And enlightened means that he will never ever break even the smallest rule of the Buddha's teachings. Even non-enlightened monks follow all of the rules of the Buddha today in Myanmar, and there are some others in Sri Lanka and Thailand and so on. So it is possible. But for the Buddha, it's the enlightenment which is the ever-present factor, of a good teacher of the Buddha's teachings, or for other monks and so on. And then the fifth book of the Vinaya Pitaka, the Code of Discipline, specifically prohibits monks who don't follow rules from teaching the rules. Monks who don't follow all of the rules are specifically prohibited to teach about rules. And this is obvious, like if the monk doesn't follow the rules, then obviously he will teach other monks not to follow the rules. And that's what we see today in the Buddhist countries. We see it outside also. Like many foreign monks, they follow rules, but many of them also don't follow the rules. So it's not, do not think that Western monk follows rules. No, it's not true. Many Western monks, many Western origin monks coming from the US, coming from in our countries, in the European countries, the monks, many of them do not follow all of the rules. Many of them follow just those that they want to follow, including touching money. It's always about touching money. If a monk touches cash, then usually he will break the other rules as well. Many of the other rules, not all. And if the monk doesn't touch the money, in most cases, according to what I've heard, what I know, they will follow all of the rules, without exception. They will always follow all of the rules. So the idea that monks should, that we should, and lay people should learn from a pure monk may be dependent on some of these lists, but certainly it is not a list or a discourse that would be coming before the Buddha just passed away. So not in the Parinibbana Sutta, which is the ultimate discourse on the Buddha's last days. So the pure monk, the true monk that you are supposed to learn from is a monk who is fully enlightened. So if we take this really seriously, then you shouldn't listen to me, because I'm not fully enlightened. The idea is that fully enlightened monk is the best teacher, is the best person to preserve the teachings, but also a monk who is striving, who is working hard to become enlightened is also good. And the only kind of monk who can attain enlightenment now are the monks who follow all of the rules. If a monk breaks a rule before he confesses it to another monk, there is no way to become enlightened. Unfortunately, this also is unknown information. Many monks do not know this. The monks who follow the rules, of course, know it. The monks who don't usually don't know it. But it is true, it is there in the main scripture. The Buddha specifically said, a monk who is intentionally breaking the rules of the Buddha cannot attain enlightenment. The commentaries clearly explain that the monk who breaks even the smallest rule intentionally, unintentionally everything is okay. You know, unintentionally, there is no problem. Even the fully enlightened Arahant, you know, can unintentionally break any rule and nobody can tell him a word. He will go and confess, that is true, and he must confess, but there is no problem with that. There is no discrepancy or confusion. No, this is all okay. We are always talking about intentional breaking of rules. So no monk who is coming to be enlightened before he would confess, no monk who would attain enlightenment now would ever intentionally break rule at that moment, you know, or after the confession, from the time of his last confession, if he had any confession since ordination. So therefore, I would suggest that not only fully enlightened or enlightened monks are good people to approach and to learn Dhamma from, but also monks who follow all of the rules, because even though they may not be enlightened now, they can become enlightened right now as they are discussing the Dhamma, as they are reflecting on the Dhamma.